Joining us in the ABP studio at the CTE Center at Olean today is Dr. Betty A. Rosa, who began her career in education as a bilingual paraprofessional, teacher, and reading coordinator, before work as an assistant principal, superintendent, and senior superintendent. After those roles, she was elected to serve on the Board of Regents for 3 consecutive terms, and currently serves as the Commissioner of Education and President of the University of the State of New York. Dr. Rosa possesses 2 master's degrees and a Doctorate of Education degree from Harvard University. We could talk at length about her accomplishments, but instead, let's jump into the show. Dr. Rosa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nick.
Today, we are joined by a panel of students from across various programs within our CTE Center, including programs such as medical assisting, cosmetology, and fundamental building systems. Dr. Rosa, could you talk to us about the Portrait of a Graduate initiative?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I just want to share with all of you is that you are actually doing this kind of work. You're living it, you're doing it, and probably what's very exciting for me is to watch it come alive. For example, you're in your classrooms and then you're in your applied learning in the, pretty much in the applied learning centers or other class that's connected to the education and workforce development, right? And so what's so exciting is that you really get to not only study, read about it, learn about it, hear about it, but then applying it is probably engaging, and it's a way of deepening that learning. So to me, all of you are exercising your own learning and developing your own portrait. So I am so excited to be here today to acknowledge the fact that you've been doing this work, and I am so proud to truly get an opportunity to see it in action.
Arthur, do you want to talk about how work-based learning hours ties into what you do in fundamental building systems?
Yeah, so my teacher, he gives us many opportunities to do things that we would do in the fields that we want to go for, such as I think around 2 weeks ago, there was a leak in a drainage pipe underneath the cosmetology room, and it was leaking down. And we went over, cut it out, replaced it, and that really helped us learn about how it would work on a real building, such as one like this. Another one was...
Go back to that. That is a perfect example, Nick, to your question about applying the learning that you are engaged in, especially with, now that counts as part of your 54 hours. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
That's great.
Yes, ma'am. I really did enjoy it. It was really fun helping. It kind of did feel like we were all helping each other out like a real business would. And also, he also sends us on individual jobs, such as there was one in auto body repair where they needed brackets put in. So I drilled holes in the wall and put the bracket in, made sure it was sturdy. Help me buy stuff that I didn't classroom to real world situations too.
Now, don't you find that that's also you're responding to these crises or these things that do happen in school settings and centers, but you have built into this an opportunity for students to respond to it as part of the learning process, right? But also you're solving, in your cosmetology part, as you spoke about, you're solving a very, very critical problem, which is fabulous.
And as for cosmetology, it's a little bit different in how they work with work-based learning hours. I think they work with a multitude of real clients that they can do hair on. Isn't that right?
Yes, the cosmetology program is a really good place to get a lot of work-based learning hours because we do a thing like on every Thursday from now on, we'll have real clients come in and we'll know what they want and then we'll do it there. And we're just being experienced with a lot of just having, it helps us with our skills because, you're not always going to be doing hair on some other person that you're close with. So being able to have good communication skills and social skills with new people that you don't know is really helpful.
And it's interesting. Thank you for that, because in the portrait of the graduate, we talk about communication. So look at what a fabulous example you've just given us about the issue of communication and how you are using your communication skills in that context. So that is terrific. That is fabulous. Yeah.
I mean, as you said, communication, we all try to work together, especially when it comes to the work-based learning hours. As for me in audiovisual productions, we have an excellent opportunity through our instructor to work with ESPN broadcasts with the St. Bonaventure men's basketball team. So sometimes we get out there and do that. We operate cameras and that sort of stuff.
So you get to actually not only do the lab or do it here, right? But then you go into the real world experience as well. So you're really having multiple opportunities. We talk about multiple pathways, but these are also multiple opportunities to access the work world that you're going to be possibly and probably entering. So what an incredible experience.
Yeah, you mentioned the multiple pathways. I wanted to ask, how does the portrait of a graduate differ from a regular Regents diploma?
Oh my goodness. It really looks at your talents. And by you, I'm talking about students' overall desires, talents, interests. I often call it gifts, things that they really are passionate about. And so while the Regents exam, they have a purpose, right? It's an assessment of a content and how you have absorbed the information, and it's a way for us as a state to look at an exam that has a very specific purpose. But for us, the most important piece is how you can articulate and also pretty much have the kind of opportunities to show us to enter and interchange with that learning process, not just in terms of a one moment in time, an event as a Regents exam, but rather your comprehensive learning, demonstrating that knowledge base through a project, through multiple ways of showing your knowledge and your learning. So it's not just having the learning take place in one form, but multiple forms of showing and demonstrating that knowledge. So it is an exciting way to connect everything that you're currently doing, which is your learning in the classroom, assessment, and then your lab, your application, and through your projects, and the time that you're spending the 54 hours showing what the learning has taken place. So it's that connectivity that's really essential. And it is just an exciting way for students to really, truly show us that deep learning process.
You mentioned that a big part of the Portrait of a Graduate initiative is getting students to, do what they're passionate about. So I wanted to ask Emma, in medical assisting, what made you passionate about medical that wanted you to join?
So I've always wanted to be in some sort of medical environment, and I think the BOCES program was really good for that because you get to not only obtain the knowledge, but you get to apply it, even not in just the classroom, but outside of classrooms. So our work-based learning hours, most of them is stuff that we do outside of class. We always have the blood drives that we always go and help out with. We have people from other classes come in and we take their vitals, and I think it's a very good experience because you get to not only just do the notes and whatever, but you get to apply it to real life.
So it's really the interesting conversation we're having across all of your work is that learning, as you said, studying it, experiencing it in that classroom, which is safe space, right? When you think about it, you have a teacher, you have a class, and you have safe space where you first begin to connect with that learning process, whether it's fundamental learning, and then you kind of start to think about, well, you know, how does this get applied? And then you're going out, as you said, to a blood drive, and you're actually seeing how it's being used and the real purpose. So it's, the classroom has its purpose, but that applied learning in that context where it's being used has its purpose as well. And I think that's what the portrait hopes to uh, bring to the reality of our teaching and learning process.
And as for the portrait of a graduate, the work-based learning hours, could you give us some examples of, besides the Fleming, what you've done for fundamental building systems and workspaces?
So more examples is, for example, electrical. Mr. Hellman, my teacher, he'll teach us from the workbook about how stuff works, how it should be applied, the code on how the trade works, and then he gave us a board. I don't know the exact dimensions, but he'll give us a diagram. Sometimes the wires are drawn in. Sometimes we'll be like, you guys figure out what wires need to go where and how it needs to be designed so it actually works correctly. And then there's also a workbench that we built at the beginning of our junior year. We designed it. We took the measurements. And we just mainly did it all. He'll help us out, but he won't just straight up give us the answer. He'll hint us towards it, but not just like, yeah, here's the answer. And that's something I've really enjoyed about fundamental building systems, is he's a really good teacher for it and lets us apply our own knowledge, and really depends on how much we're willing to put ourselves forward to make everything work. So
Well, what's interesting about that, and I think we both are listening to, he used the word design. And obviously, you also talked about your teacher in that safe space, right? That while he's coaching you and he's teaching you, he's also allowing you to um, be part of that learning process. So he's a facilitator for your learning, but you are owning your learning, and you are actually designing and creating and innovating and being a critical thinker, which, when you look at the portrait of the graduate, right? We talked about communication, but we also talked about being a critical thinker. And so he's helping you as that critical thinker think about the design and the application. So those are fabulous examples.
Yeah, as Arthur mentioned, a lot of what BOCES and CTE centers aim to do is, blur the line between a workplace and a classroom and create a safe place where students can do what they're passionate about and, make mistakes and grow better and do better for themselves to better prepare themselves for what they want to do in the future. So what does that mean to you?
I couldn't have said it better. You just capture exactly not only the portrait of the graduate, but what it is we're trying to do. Safe spaces, listen to what you said. Safe spaces, that whole application process, right? And blurring the lines, and really coming up with really the idea of that learning, that safe space, but also knowing that there's also an outcome, and preparing for clearly entering the world of work, which ultimately education is about preparing you to enter that space, the world of work. And so BOCES and CTE clearly has been doing that preparation work for a long time. And I think we have come to a place and space where we are taking the best practices, the best learning from the individuals that were the pioneers of this work. We're just taking it to a much more universal space than just limiting it for some students. We'd like it to be for all students.
All right. And I want to thank our panel for their great insight and contribution. And thank you so much to Dr. Rosa for joining us today. And we really look forward to seeing you around campus.
Thank you. Thank you.